Well, Sean, why don't you start us off with just giving us a little bit about your background and experience that you think might lend itself well to public service in the Iowa legislature, and why you decided to jump into this race.
Okay. I was born and raised in Dubuque. I think my dad and mother both worked for John Deere. We transferred down to the Quad Cities, so I think right around sixth grade. So I've lived in Dubuque for about half of my adolescent life, and then down in Geneseo, Illinois, which is a small farm town, for the latter half of my adolescent life. At that point, junior year in high school, I decided to join the Army Reserves. Went to basic training between my junior and senior year. Went active duty after my graduation from high school. Was in there till about 2000, and got out really unsure of what I was going to do at that point. So from there, had quite a smattering of work experience, life experience. I moved back to the Quad Cities and then roughly shortly thereafter back to Dubuque, Iowa. Lived here for about 5 years, at which time went back to school at NICC and got a business degree, business specialist degree, and majored in hospitality management. I met my wife shortly thereafter, and I was working for Grand Harbor, but looking for other things, looking for other places to go outside of Dubuque. Opportunity knocked. I took a management position with a hotel management group out of Madison, but ended up working in Kenosha, Wisconsin, living in Racine, Wisconsin. Lived up there for about 8 years. And then my wife had an opportunity to move back to Dubuque with a school here. She got her teaching degree and her master's in teaching while she was up there. Started teaching up there for an urban inner city choice school, private school, and then with her offer back here, we moved back here. At that point, I was kind of intending to try to figure out something new for myself, because the job I was doing at the time, which was working on cell phone towers and wind turbines and solar installations, just the commute and everything, and the lack of upward mobility that was, promised to me, not promised. We were trying to work towards, just wasn't available anymore. So had to figure something else out in life, and I decided that I wanted to start working for myself, and I started to open up a woodworking shop. Realized that the job I had at that point, doing the two together with the work obligations was just not a possibility. And at that time, I had taken a job with Prairie INET. If you're familiar with that company, it's a company that was before Comelec. It was U Squared, then Prairie INET, then Comelec Internet. I was maintaining their tower infrastructure, and my wife and I kind of came to the conclusion that we both wanted to do something together, that we can do something together, and we chose to basically start up a small urban farmstead with the intention of large-scale commercial production in the future through commercial greenhouses. And that's what we've been working on ever since. Well, tried to balance full-time jobs. My wife is still a full-time teacher, trying to incorporate the farmstead within her educational opportunities and extend those to other educational institutions throughout Dubuque. And I took a job working for the public school system as a custodian. As far as what got me into politics, I really wasn't involved in politics until about 2015, when I started seeing the candidate fields emerge, both with Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, and a libertarian candidate called Gary Johnson. That's what really kind of got me interested. It was also a highly, I would say, a polarized election in which I didn't know exactly where I fit, but what the third candidate was saying was really starting to match up pretty well with my personality and my ideals. And I also found out that I had the right to vote. And I'm sure that will come up later on in this conversation. Prior to that, I didn't have a right to vote or wasn't aware I had a right to vote. As far as getting in this race, I started following politics pretty heavily because the job I was doing as a custodian for the school district allows me to have like 8 hours of time just to put my headphones in and listen to podcasts, news reports, YouTube videos that were talking about different and interesting topics that I can just stream in my headset while I'm working. So seeing some of the concerns, paying attention a little bit more to more national politics at the time, and then starting to pay a little bit more attention to the local politics and just having questions in general and wondering, why are we doing this? Are we not aware of these possible consequences? Or this is a great thing, we should be pushing for this. So I feel like I was advancing to a more knowledgeable voter rather than, a lower information voter. And I say that with the utmost respect. Low information, just not having the time or the ability to research different topics. And, I don't have the greatest amount of time, but I do try to pay attention to what's going on around me. Given a full-time job, given the urban farmstead, I just don't have that much time to be able to reach out to, say, my ward representative, my state representative, and obviously they don't have all the time in the world to answer my every question on why a proposal was moving forth or why they were wanting to do something. So I have all these questions and I wanted to get involved, but it has never been my first priority. Nor has it been at the top of the opportunity for me as well. So when I checked my ballot this year, I noticed a big gaping hole. There was only one option, and that was one of the incumbents as we've been redistricted. And I really value choice in everything as a libertarian. So the more choices for me, the better. Baskin-Robbins 31 flavors. If we could have 31 different candidates, I would be really happy because I think that gives us a more broader spectrum of candidates and ideas and outlooks and perspectives to align with or to choose from. So having only one candidate in the ballot was completely unacceptable to me. I did reach out to the Republican Party here in Dubuque and ask them, hey, are you not running a candidate? I only get one choice this year, and that's basically, just an appointment. It's not even an election. And they said they're not running anybody. They've been redistricted. So I said, well, I talked to my wife, and after a long point of conversation, my dad always said, sometimes you just have to step up and do the job when nobody else is going to do it for you. The current candidate was not matching how I would like to see things go forward, or maybe views that I have and not representing those views how I think I would like to have them. So I felt there's got to be more people that feel like me, and that's why my wife and I had a deep conversation. We knew this could possibly put some serious difficulties in our life and our lifestyle. It could create some negative impacts because I'm sure we're all aware that political standpoints and viewpoints are pretty polarizing right now. Everything from cancel culture to just people refusing to utilize your business or services because of your viewpoints. Chick-fil-A being one of the hot national topics. And I said, are we willing to put ourselves in this position to support our ideals and principles? And it was a unanimous vote. It was a difficult vote in our household, but it was unanimous. And I decided to reach out to the party that best represented my views for some assistance, given I had never even considered running for office before. And I had no idea how to go about that. And so they were able to provide some guidance, help me kind of through the more technical aspects, give me some advice on political stances to initiate with. Again, given my work schedules and my devotion to opening up our startup urban farmstead, I was not and the fact that it was a last minute decision. I didn't find out about the ballot options until mid-July. So at that point, I had to. The ballot filing was August 1st, and I didn't have time to get out into the community. So they said, well, the best next thing to do is just pick 3 issues that were important to you or that you feel are going to be, relevant in the upcoming legislative sessions, and just base them on there, and then just kind of cipher through, any remaining issues you come across, and try to at least establish an informed position on those issues, and start from there, and try to build. And that's what I'm doing, and trying to represent people that maybe think like me, or maybe don't think exactly like me, but think more like me than what their current options are.
Okay, so kind of a lot to think about there. So in 2015 was really when you kind of started to really be more interested, or opened your eyes to the political situation. Why do you phrase it that you didn't realize you had a right to vote?
Because I have a felony on my record. And I know you do background checks, and I think you've talked to another candidate in the past and you brought that up. So, and that's important for people to know as well. If you go to my website at seanforia71.com, in the beginning introduction and in several other places on my website, you'll see me mention that I do have a felony background. In 2005, Governor Vilsack basically passed legislation that gave voting rights back to felons, as long as, with a particular set of criteria, all of your restitution had to be paid, no probation, you're off probation, your sentence is commuted, or not commuted. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's been completed.
Yeah, it has been completed. Basically, you have no outstanding obligations to the state as far as what you've been sentenced to. You've completed everything successfully, and you've proven yourself to be able to return back to society unsupervised, et cetera, et cetera. So in 2005, I got my voting rights back. Had no idea. Nobody sent me a letter. Nobody contacted me. Not, I'm sure that's a pretty difficult and daunting endeavor for the state to do. And that's probably partially my fault for not paying attention to politics. Actually, I would say if I were to back up here, I would say that's probably all of my fault. I think a lot of the voting public has deferred a lot of their research to just the perspective and investigation of their elected representatives. And we're not taking an active role in politics as we should. Maybe some people are, but not the general public. And I was one of those people. I would have known this had I been paying attention. So in 2015, I did find out, just in the curiosity, I wanted to know, had anything. I think I read an article that kind of mentioned felon voting rights in Iowa. And so I did some research. I called the city hall, I called the county, and then I was referred to the state, talked to the state secretary of state, verified that all my obligations have been met, and called my old probation officer. Yep, application's been met. Just double, triple checked everything, and basically the secretary of state said, "Yeah, you qualify for Governor Vilsack's." Now I was really disappointed that Governor Branstad in 2006 or just shortly thereafter actually rescinded Vilsack's efforts. Basically, anybody who had received those rights back prior to Branstad's new position, we were grandfathered in, so we didn't lose them. But everybody moving forward returned to that basically lifetime, loss of rights. And
until Kim Reynolds did it last 2020.
Yeah, and it was on a case-by-case basis. And then, yeah, Reynolds then, and I was all for that. And I actually participated in some online conversations trying to let people understand that I don't think people really understand how important your rights are. Everything from your right to vote, the right to hold public office, and from a felon's point of view, your right to defend yourself with a firearm, to have security in your home. Now, I still don't have those rights back. The right to own a firearm and defend myself and my loved ones in my own home, which I think is a discussion we should have with nonviolent criminals, nonviolent felonies. Just because you have a felony doesn't mean you were violent in any way, shape, or form. You can write a bad check in the wrong state and receive a felony. So I think we should have that discussion as well. I think I've more than proven my ability to maintain my status as a responsible and committed member of our society and our community. So I'd like to have that discussion, but I understand, there's a stigma, and I wear that scarlet letter around my neck every day. I understand how it feels to be ostracized and outcast because of a poor decision that you've made in the past. And I do everything I can to try to make up for it, but at some point, I've gotten to the point where I don't, as far as how people view me personally and judge me, sometimes you just got to start pushing that away and be like, you know what, I am me. These are decisions that I've made, and I've paid for my decisions, and I've moved forward. So if you're going to hold that against me, well, that's your loss. I'm sorry.
Sure.
That's not my concern anymore.
And it sounds like that yours was a nonviolent offense.
Correct.
And how long ago was that? What year was that?
2001.
Okay. Well, tell us a little bit. So you talked about the Libertarian Party sort of directing you or encouraging you to focus on 3 issues as you were getting into this kind of late in the game. What are your 3 issues then that you opted to focus on?
So I picked 3 issues that I could predict would come up in the state legislature or that were important to me, for a variety of reasons, and also that I could somehow loosely link together under the banner of individual choice, individual rights. And that was the first and foremost was, well, actually, they're all 3 pretty much on the same level, but I've got to start somewhere. So let's go with the Second Amendment, the right to defend oneself and the right to have a defense against a tyrannical government should that ever happen, either foreign or domestic incidences of oppression. So I'm a very firm 2A advocate. I've grown up around firearms since I can remember. But my household was a safe and responsible household. I knew from day one to never, ever pick up one of my father's firearms or even think about it. That would be a very, very poor decision on my part. And from day one, there was always gun safety. But like I said, I've been around firearms growing up. Never had a problem. Never went outside the lines with firearm use. In the military, I was entrusted with fully automatic M16s, fully automatic saw squad machine guns, 5.56 machine guns, belt fed, tow missiles, AT-4s. I'm quite capable of having a personal home defense weapon, of whatever type I should choose. Now I understand we have laws against possessing automatic weapons. Fine, we can discuss that. The second issue is basically choice in education. That's important to me because, well, I do work in a school. I'm a custodian, and I've moved from Hempstead High School to Roosevelt Middle School to Fulton, which is a Title I school before it closed, and now I'm at Sageville. And my wife started teaching. She has a field biology major, 4-year degree from UW-Platteville, and she's a graduate there, alumni. She's been alumni awards. She got her teaching certificate, master's in teaching, up at Cardinal Stritch University. She started working for, like I said, Mesmer Catholic High School up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Again, that at the time, that was the only school choice in Wisconsin. Then they expanded that program to Racine, Wisconsin. And then now all of Wisconsin is a parental choice in education state. So that right there, observing that progression, understanding the benefits that a specialized institution with their curriculum, with their different methodologies. Mesmer Catholic High School was what they call a project-based learning school. It's where you don't test, you complete a project, and you're required to fulfill all of your learning obligations within that project, and you're graded on a final project. Now, the school that she currently works at is more personalized learning, styled after the Summit School, which was started by Mark Zuckerberg, or financed by Mark Zuckerberg. Her school has since transitioned from the traditional educational methodologies completely over to personalized learning. So watching all this happen around me, also observing the students and understanding like personal conversations I've had with teachers or counselors. We have a counselor in our family as well that works at one of the middle schools. So having this really wide range of dynamic around me, but not having been a teacher myself, kind of gives me an outside perspective of the importance of having a choice and an option in otherwise government monopoly of education. We don't have that monopoly in any other form of public finance, right? Name another form of public finance or public assistance that you're entitled to or you receive in which you are obligated to spend it at a government-run institution. WIC, SNAP benefits. We're not required to go to a government store to purchase, and only one, of which the state tells us which one we can or cannot go to. Pell Grants for colleges, you can spend that at a private institution. The GI Bill, I could spend that wherever I want. That's a government money. So the fallacy of public money for public schools, I believe can just go right out the window, as far as I'm concerned. And if I had my dithers, I would say issue everybody a voucher for the $11,000 and $11,500 that the state currently spends. And according to Kim Reynolds, it's actually higher, like $16,000. But the figures that I've been able to pull is 11.5. Get everybody a check for that amount and let parents have the responsibility back of choosing what is best for their children, right? It's their tax money that's being collected, it's being pooled, and then it's being doled back out, but they have no choice in how that money is spent or where it's spent or what methodologies are being taught that they do or do not agree with, or they endorse or don't endorse. So that's a personal choice. And I felt that with my exposure in the school systems, especially at Fulton, in which there's a lot of underprivileged students there, and seeing the possibilities that students had in Milwaukee at the school that my wife taught at, and seeing the obvious opportunities of folks that can afford to not only be taxed for education but then pay again out of pocket, and seeing teachers sending their kids to private school, public school teachers, right? Seeing public school principals send their kids to private school, seeing public school system administrators sending their kids to private school. I mean, I don't want to put anybody's business out on the street here, but I believe there's one person interviewing me that has sent their child to a private school and obviously recognizes the benefits that are important to you. And I'm not saying public schools are doing a bad job. And if you believe in public schools, by all means, send your child to public school with your voucher. But you should have the ability to choose whether if the public school fits you or your child's need, or If you feel that a private school provides an opportunity that the public school is not fulfilling, or a duty that the public school is not fulfilling, you should have the choice whether that's going to a private school. And I'm not saying send your child to a religious private school. I'm saying you should be able to homeschool if you like, and not on the dime of out of your pocket. Or maybe you have a tax write-off. Maybe you do want to pay for it, but you want, you don't want it, that you still want to get that government control out of how and where you teach your child. Or even pod learning, which is a huge upcoming upcoming advancement in education. We saw that during COVID, where teachers parents are banding together and hiring, either teaching themselves, a group of parents, students, or the group is hiring teachers on their own to teach their students. So there's so many options, and you should have the choice in how you spend your money. It should not be dictated by the state. That's my second point. And the third is mental health. Along with guns, and this topic comes up a lot, is the mass shootings. I'm not afraid to talk about that. I'm not afraid to talk about the public shootings, whether it's in a school or a mall, whether it's a peer-to-peer shooting, in a crime of passion or violence. And I'm not afraid to talk about inner city, narco-economic activity and the related violence around there, gang shootouts. I think we saw that in the one mass shooting that we've had in Iowa, out in one of the Western schools. And forgive me, I'm on the spot here and I'm failing to remember the name of that school. But I believe that was between two groups of students that had some beef outside of school. Or maybe it's a group of students and some adults. Can't remember the exact details. But why are we seeing all this? It's not because guns are more available now. It's not because we have more powerful firearms. We have a violence issue in this country, and it's promoted by the people who are the first to point their fingers at guns. Look at Hollywood. Look at all the celebrities denouncing guns over the issue of violence we have in this society and shootings, but yet they portray it and advocate for it in almost every single movie production that they put out. John Wick, one of the most popular movies in late history, filled with gun violence that's promoted and produced by Hollywood. So I had to try to look at why people are resorting to this. Number one, it's a mental health issue, in my opinion, and I've done the research to justify that. Two, it's also a copycat. One of the most recent school shootings that came, I think it was a school shooting, or it was an attempted shooting in which the police were able to get in there quickly, or relatively quickly. And that was pretty sad. But that gentleman, specifically stated, and I think it's a post that I put on my Facebook page there, that he was isolated, he was bullied, he was never accepted. So you can see all bullet point for bullet point, no pun intended, all the societal factors that went into causing his mental health issue, and he wanted revenge. Okay. And that got me thinking about mental health care. How do we resolve mental health care? And I said, what is the biggest demographic I feel that could be, ideally situated to benefit from mental health care? Well, I have a whole family full of veterans. I have a father, an uncle. I have two friends that are all veterans and all suffer from some level of PTSD, whether they're functional or non-functional. My father and my uncle obviously are very functional. My father's a leader of the Honor Guard out of Muscatine. My uncle, who's in the hospital right now, I'm actually going to go see him on Saturday because he may not make it. He's the president of the Vietnam Veterans of Arizona. Okay. I have two friends, one in Racine, who is a Marine veteran from Iraq, severe PTSD. I've had to actually sit in a car with him for 2 hours trying to talk him back to reality, from a trigger episode. And, it caused a divorce for him. It caused substance abuse problems for him, mainly alcohol. And I have another friend currently who's on full disability for PTSD. And I said, and that's what really kind of got me on that track. I said, how are you dealing with this? And he mentioned, well, we got into a conversation actually in depth about the medications that he's been given. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't, sometimes they fade off. And then you end up stacking more medications on the current medications because of undesirable side effects of those medications, those primary medications he's on. And I said, well, let me do some research on the internet and see if there's anything else that we can try or ask the VA to try for you. And I stumbled upon an article, and this was pretty far back, about upcoming developments in psychedelic therapy. And I said, no, there's no way that this could happen. And, everybody from Johns Hopkins University to Harvard University to the VA, there has been a progressive, very slow but progressive advancement in the understanding of using psychedelics, whether that most people think of, shrooms. No, it's not just shrooms. It's everything from ketamine to MDMA, otherwise known as ecstasy. And that's one of the most promising amongst the veterans community and PTSD issues. But we also have breaking addictions. We also have end-of-life crises for the elderly and the people with terminal illnesses. There's chronic anxiety, chronic depression. There's a variety of different psychedelics that have shown extreme potential in breaking those issues or helping the patient to resolve those issues. And now in Texas, it was a unanimous decision amongst the legislative community that was pushed by actual veterans. I'm talking Special Forces veterans, Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Medal of Honor recipients who had to travel outside of this country in order to get therapy for PTSD issues that was ruining their lives, ruining their families, and causing them to be basically just an ineffectual cog in society, and possibly committing suicide. We have 22 veterans a day that commit suicide on average. That's the average figure. And go ahead. Sorry.
So let me just jump in a minute here. We're gonna run out of time. So
sorry.
You're on a roll. Let me I guess tell me how those issues intersect. When I think about, okay, it sounds like you're staunch for Second Amendment rights, mm-hmm. and I get that, but you also have concerns about violence in our society, which would make me tend to think about some restrictions on guns, and the current ballot issue would be kind of prohibitive of those kinds of things. So these folks you're talking about, you seem to have good understanding and knowledge of the challenges that present themselves, particularly with former military suffering from PTSD. I mean, should we be able to have regulation of guns in issues like that, or how do you sort of reconcile those things?
So we currently have over 1,000. I think it's actually that's quite a quite conservative number. We already have a plethora of restrictions on guns, right, across the United States and within Iowa.
In Iowa,
and nationwide, there's over 1,000 different restrictions on guns, whether it's purchasing, whether it's the type of firearm you can own, who can own it, where you can carry, where you can't. But all this stuff is still happening, right? So how are we justifying more equals less? We have a really bad habit of doing that, even in our governmental spending. If something's not working, just throw more money at it. We'll make it work with more money. We'll be able to do this with more money.
Well,
no, we need to get down to the bottom of the problem, and banning a particular item that somebody commits a crime with is not going to resolve it. If I give you a toolbox to build a house and I take away a hammer, could you use a wrench to pound in a nail? Yes, you can. Is it going to be a little bit more difficult? Yes. But strict scrutiny basically is making sure that whatever you're proposing to curtail what you want to curtail, it's making sure that you have done the work to ensure that what you're proposing is actually going to accomplish what you're proposing. And if you can't back that up, and if you can't justify it, it's you can't pass that. Second Amendment is a constitutional right. Now, I don't know if you know this or not, but the subject of abortion is also subject to strict scrutiny in the in the Iowa State Supreme Court, right? Did you know that?
No, I did not.
In 2018, the Iowa State Supreme Court went through a case, and I can get you the case number if you'd like. Yeah, but the strict scrutiny clause was applied to restrictions on abortion. And
I mean, it makes sense. We have extremely strict abortion laws. So,
well, they wanted to put more. And the Iowa State, the Supreme Court said that we couldn't unless the state could justify exactly how that's going to work. And I feel that firearms being a constitutional right where abortion is not, that's even more of a cause.
So Sean, tell me what you're doing to listen to voters and hear their opinions, and kind of what are you doing to get that kind of feel for what the constituency believes in, and how does that line up with your belief system?
So, because of my work schedules currently, I'm not my competition. This is not my full-time job. I don't have 8 hours a day to meet with constituents. I have a full-time job that it's 8 hours a day. I have an urban farmstead that we're either working or trying to build out that requires a lot of my, most of my available time besides when the time I get to sleep. So I do utilize social media. I had to think outside the box. How do I see what's going through people's heads? How do I hear what people are saying when I can't interact with them in the local community? And I don't have, or I did not have a year to prepare a ground team to go door knocking and help me to engage with constituents. Social media, because as bad as social media can be, it can also be a great tool because you really get to see what people are thinking from behind a screen. They're a little bit more honest on social media, and that can be good and that can be bad. We've seen some of the ugliness of things people would say or think that they would never allow you to know in a face-to-face environment. I've also said that how else can I understand and make myself available in a manner that's convenient for the constituents, in a manner that's, enables me to be available. And I started a podcast, a campaign podcast, just trying to think outside the box. I have a computer. We're doing a Zoom meeting right now. Why can't I publish myself and make myself available for X amount of time on a date that's convenient for myself and everybody else, and have them type in their questions, have them type in what they feel or issues they want me to make me aware of. I've been doing this every Sunday since August 28th.
And it becomes two-way conversation because you're answering questions that they're submitting, or?
Yes. Yep. It's interactive. So I broadcast to 4 different social media profiles, 2 Facebook profiles, and 2 YouTube profiles. My own personal profiles, and then my campaign profiles, just to get some reach. I would love to do more on, like, let's say Twitter. I can broadcast live to Twitter. I could broadcast live to other Periscope and other streaming platforms. But I can only do so much. I could only set up so much. I had a very limited time window, and I just had to do what I could and be as creative and outside the box thinking and resourceful. So I do interact, like I said, a lot with people on social media through those venues.
So and then to clarify, the only way you're reaching the people that you would represent is through social media. You're not talking to people.
I talk to people that I interact with on a daily basis. Also, when I had to go get signatures just to get onto the ballot, I talked to quite a few different people within the areas in which I was canvassing to get signatures. I watch interviews. I look at what people are saying. That's the best I can do. I'm working within the means that I have, and I'm trying to be as creative. I've been inviting people since August 28th to come talk to me, to just log on to a YouTube stream or to a Facebook stream. And look, in politics, it's a two-way street. It's obviously that the responsibility and the effort of the candidate or the representative to communicate with their individual constituents, but it's also half as much responsibility for the constituents to be involved and make that effort. If you don't take your complaint or your concern or your request to your representative, the representative's got a job to do. You've got to do your half as well. And I've sat down with my opponent twice for about an hour and a half at a location over coffee, and we discussed issues, everything from vaccines and vaccine mandates to abortion. I actually know Lindsay. I've actually spoke to her, but that was out of my own interaction. I interacted with her on social media, and then I said, "Hey, can we meet?" Or she said, "Hey, how about we meet?" And we sat down face to face. I'd be able to make that time, but if somebody is disagreeing with me, or somebody has something they want me to address or want me to understand the perspective on, they have to be able to reach out as well. It's people need to be more active than what they are. I feel like we're abdicating our responsibility to our representatives and expecting them to be mind readers and understand where we're coming from or what we want. And I'm just as guilty of that, but I changed my perspective a couple years ago and actually started practicing what I preached.
Well, I promised Sean we wouldn't keep him super long this morning, but Allie or Dustin, do either of you guys want to jump in and hit another issue before we let him go?
Al, you've got to have something. There's got to be something that you want to ask.
I guess one question I could ask is, so you talked a little bit about kind of the earlier on when you were talking about national elections and the partisanship and things like that. And certainly we see, especially at a national level with the, Democrats, Republicans, a lot of partisanship, and whose fault it is for being partisan kind of seems to depend on which side you're on. And I'm sort of interested in kind of, with your perspective as a third party candidate, as somebody who, kind of has your views. How do you see, bipartisanship fitting into what you would do at the State House if you were elected? What role does that have for you, and what does that mean to be bipartisan?
So it's actually going to be tripartisan.
Okay.
Thank you. So yeah, you do see a lot of the infighting between the Republicans and the Democrats, the two-party duopoly, right? They have a lot of this. So in some instances they work together, in some instances they don't. There's a lot of perspective differences there. I think a third party can almost mitigate or referee the perspective. I can bring an outside perspective. I'm not beholden to party lines, first of all. If the Democrats bring a solid proposal to the State House and they can justify it, okay, I would vote for that. If the Republicans can bring a valid proposal and justify it, okay, I would vote for that. Now, if we get into a situation and neither of them can disagree, which is like, I don't know, probably a lot, I think having an arbitrator like we do in our court systems, being able to take the differences between two individuals or two entities and arbitrate a fair resolution to that issue, I think would be invaluable to our state legislature. There may be committees in which you have very distinctive differences that could be or help be mitigated and arbitrated with a third-party perspective, saying, I like, this makes sense from your perspective, this makes sense from your perspective. I think here's one part of both those perspectives that I think we really need to look at and work around. Can we come to a better understanding? Are there other situations or other solutions that we could consider? More viewpoints and more input into the conversation is only going to lead to a better result.
Well, we're just about out of time here,
Mike?
and appreciate your time this morning. Is there anything you else you want to leave us with, Sean?
To kind of sum it up, I believe in choice. And all of my decisions, or all of my perspectives, and how I, would choose to represent the perspectives of the constituents of this district comes down to choice, freedom, and opportunity. Okay. If those criteria are not met, it's going to be a pretty hard push for me to accept a proposal that's not serving the best interests of our community. From economics, a lot of people say, oh, the libertarians, they don't want any government funding of anything. They don't want communal funding of anything. And that's not true. Basically, we are taxed. That money is taken from us, sent to Des Moines, and and then we're fighting over those economic funds within the state legislature for our individual districts. I tell you what, I'm going to fight like a lion to bring every dime back from Des Moines. Even though I may not agree why it was taken in the first place, I'm going to fight for every dime to come back to this area. And how we choose it is going to be up to our area and up to our constituents, our constituents' inputs on how we utilize those dimes. That's the obligation of the representative, is to fight to bring that back to us. So, if it's taken from us, I want it back. I want us to be able to use it. I want our fair share for our district. And I also want to separate us from other districts. What's good for Des Moines is not necessarily good for Dubuque. And so I don't want Des Moines' issues or how they want things done pushed upon our district if it's not good for our district. And I will fight to prevent that. And I want personal choice, whether it's in medical, whether it's in education, or whether it's in how or when you defend yourself or have the ability to defend yourself. Environmental issues, we need more hemp cultivation to control, environmental issues surrounding, let's say farm runoff. We could get into so much here. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I know there's a lot to cover, but hey, we really appreciate you waking up early to chat with us this morning and share your views. So thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Mike. Sorry, Mike, we didn't get an opportunity to get you another question in.
All good.
All right.
Thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Allie. Bye.